Turmoil in Georgia. As the elections finished in this country, the opposition rejected the results, claiming they've been fabricated, while Viktor Orban, the Hungarian pro-Russian prime minister, came to congratulate the ruling party with victory in the elections. While all this has been happening, Russian propaganda media have started a campaign discrediting Ukraine and accusing it of preparing fighters to do a revolution in Georgia. Kyiv is gathering fighters from among ethnic Georgians to organize riots in Georgia. A document confirming this is at the disposal of TASS. The document presented by propagandists was copied several times, and it is hard to talk about any authenticity. The National Police of the Dnipropetrovsk region identifies ethnic Georgians living in Ukraine, including current and former fighters of the Russian band Azov and Armed Forces of Ukraine servicemen. The Russian publication quotes, "Interestingly, this coincided with the opposition protest actions in Tbilisi against the elections result. Russia is trying to project its influence on Georgia, securing the pro-Russian cause of the government." The document also had several obvious mistakes in the use of Ukrainian language. And the Georgian president herself is saying to journalists, the election was fabricated according to Russian methodology. She herself is in opposition to the ruling party and wishes EU integration of Georgia.
No, it's an accusation that the methodology used and the support of most probably Russian FSB types is shown in these elections, because it was very sophisticated, with use of multiple forms of frauds. That propaganda that was used before the elections was a clear duplicate, the same way as the Russian law that we had, the foreign agents law, duplicated the Russian law. In the same way, the propaganda was direct duplication, copy-paste of Russian clips and videos used at the time of Putin election.
It must be admitted that Russia has won in Georgia today. They took part of the country, then changed the policy, the government, and now there is a pro-Russian government. Their choice is friendship with Russia, not the EU. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine.
How the situation will unfold we still don't know, but for sure Georgia is at crossroads of its future path. And another familiar fake is Russian President Putin again accusing NATO of building military bases in Ukraine, despite the obvious fact that there has been no NATO military presence in Ukraine pre-war, and even now it is ruled out of the agenda. NATO doesn't want to be a part of the war and never wanted to. Nevertheless, Putin has used a non-existent threat as a pretext for war against Ukraine.
Is it fair to violate the commitments undertaken within the OSCE? When all Western countries have signed a paper according to which there can be no security for one side if the security of the other is violated. We said, don't do it. It violates our security. NATO expansion. No, they did it anyway. Was that fair? Vladimir Putin, President of Russia.
In reality, Ukraine's desire to join NATO is obvious now, but there is no enthusiasm from the alliance to invite us. At the Bucharest summit in 2008, Ukraine was denied a membership action plan. After that, the declarative statement that Ukraine would become a NATO member in the future was repeated several times, but nothing more. It was only after the outbreak of the full-scale war that some shift occurred. The alliance announced that no roadmap was required for Ukraine's accession. But as Julian Smith, the US representative to NATO, recently confirmed, the alliance has not reached a point to date where it is ready to offer Ukraine membership or even an invitation. So the question remains, how can one justify a war against another one by lying outrightly, manipulatively and consistently? Well, from Russia with lies, it is worth reminding that it was exactly after the rejection of Ukraine and Georgia to join NATO that Russia attacked Georgia in 2008. And here we are on the third year of the full-scale war in Europe. And last but not the least, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Rico has recently given an interview to Russian top propagandist Olga Skebeeva on the main Russian propaganda channel about fatigue about war in Ukraine. The interview itself was not live but pre-recorded with voice-over for the answers of Prime Minister Fico. The realistic and live interview, sure. The narrative spread was voiced before. Ukraine had to sign capitulation in 2022 and end the war then, with subsequent occupation and installing a pro-Russian political power in the country, de facto becoming second Belarus and a bridgehead for a future Russian invasion into Poland and the Baltics. But that never happened, and Russians are angry about it.
First of all, I think it is mainly because those who supported this war from the beginning do not want to admit a mistake or an oversight, because it is very clear today that there were real agreements on the table in April 2022 that could have ended the conflict immediately. But somebody came along and said, no, you can't sign that. And today we all look at this war, and I feel, pardon my frankness, we look away and say, here are your weapons, here is your money, fight, just don't bore us with it. We just don't want anything to do with this war anymore. You know, I really feel sorry for every human life.
All the signals of the overwhelming presence and power of Russian propaganda, which expectedly peaked and tries to influence democratic processes in countries that Russia considers its rivals or adversaries. So it is extremely important to keep a cold head now and don't let propaganda win.